Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ashley Cruz, and I'm the Manager of Community Engagement here at the Mental Health Foundation. So, before we begin, we would like to acknowledge that what we call Alberta is the traditional and ancestral territory of many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit, who for generations have lived on and cared for these lands. Our work takes place on historical and contemporary Indigenous lands, including the territories of Treaty 6, 7, and 8, and a portion of the Métis homeland, including regions 1 through 6. Since we're in a virtual environment today, I would also like to acknowledge that no matter where you're tuning in from, we offer respect and gratitude for the land. So, we're really excited for our technology focused topic today, titled Plugging In Enhancing Our Mental Health in Our Digital Lives. By the end of this interactive session, we hope you'll be inspired to move towards a more intentional use of technology that supports your mental health and well being, because it is possible, as we're going to hear today. If you enjoyed today's session, please let us know. There will be a short 5-question survey to capture your feedback at the end. We do read every response to ensure we continue improving these sessions month after month, so please do fill that out. And now I'm pleased to turn it over to Ellis Dawn, our platinum sponsor for our 2025 Lunch and Learn series. We're so grateful for Ellis Dawn's support since we really could not do these sessions without such a dedicated partner to make it possible. So now I'm going to hand it over to Chris Saunders, Sustainability Project Manager at Ellis Dawn, to say a few words.
Thank you, Ashley. Thanks for that introduction. It is our pleasure at Ellis Dawn to be the platinum partner of this Lunch and Learn event today, and a privilege for our organisation to share in the lessons that we learn as part of the session. As a general contractor, and there may be a few of us in that kind of realm on the call, it's fair to say that we work in an industry that is bounded in stress and strain, and that's both physically and mentally. In terms of my own lived experience at a company back in the UK, I had to manage my own mental health whilst ensuring I delivered my responsibilities within a harsh construction environment. And trying to balance that and balance those two things is probably one of the hardest challenges personally that I've experienced. Thankfully, it's 2025 and companies like Ellis Dawn and probably many on the call are recognising those challenges and providing support through mental health steering groups, establishing wellness hubs, signposting to organisations like the MHF, and providing access to qualified professionals that you can lean on in times of need. And talking of qualified professionals and exploring mental health in the digital age, which is why we're here today, we have two exceptional speakers. So I'm going to pass over to Anissa and Kathy, who will take you through the rest of the session. I'm looking forward to this. Thank you.
Wonderful. I'm actually going to introduce them first. So, this Lunch and Learn session, as Chris mentioned, is facilitated by Anissa Gill and Kathy Mercier, who are both health promotion facilitators with Recovery Alberta Professional Practice and Education Services right here in the Edmonton zone. Anissa is a registered social worker supporting adults and older adults who face mental health and addiction challenges. Anissa is also a sessional instructor at MacEwan University in the social work program. And Kathy brings experience in providing community support and psychoeducational materials to children, youth, adults, and families in the areas of mental health and addictions. And I should say both Kathy and Anissa have been doing this with us almost 2 years now. I think exactly 2 years now. October 2023 is when we had our first session. So we're so grateful for you being here and facilitating these. And yeah, with that, we'll get you to take it away.
Thanks, Ashley. Thanks, Chris. Yes, it's been 2 years. Time flies. So with that, let's get started on today's presentation here. I'm just going to flip over. Okay, so we're excited to welcome you to today's virtual session, Plugging In, Enhancing Mental Health in Our Digital Lives. So this session is brought to you through Recovery Alberta in partnership with Mental Health Foundation and Ellis Dawn. And we will just move on here. Let's take a look. We're going to a bit of a disclaimer. So this information is designed for education purposes only. It should not be used in place of medical advice, instructions, and/or treatment. So if you have a specific or any specific questions, rather, please contact your doctor or other healthcare professionals. So today we're going to take a look at the benefits and drawbacks to digital technology, review impacts of technology use on our health, look at some signs of problematic screen media use, and then lastly, discuss strategies for using digital technology to support our well-being. And so we want to point out this is not a presentation where we take a stance against technology. We wouldn't be able to altogether live without technology because technology is very much integrated in our lives. So with that, I'm curious. Let's start off with a question here, a bit of a discussion. How does digital technology help you every day? Okay, so feel free to share your thoughts in the chat. We'll capture a few of them. How does technology help you every day? What does that look like to you or your family? Okay, so somebody mentioned scheduling for family activities. Yes, yes, that's pretty cool. Yep. A number of you mentioned connecting and communicating with others in your life. Yep. Weather reports, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. We want to know what to anticipate, our day in terms of weather and even our week. So that just helps us to organize our lives. Somebody mentioned working remotely from home. Absolutely. We are working from home more than ever before. So that apps, yeah, the use of technology has allowed that. Maintenance of all things technology. Yeah, so technology to help with other pieces of technology at home. So yeah, we really like to rely on that. Yes, tracking my obligations, absolutely, right? Or tasks that need to be completed. And so there's some pretty cool apps we're looking into, or somebody like me who uses old school Excel spreadsheets, hosting virtual events like this, right? This is more accessible for people more than ever before, not just in Alberta, but in Canada and throughout the world. So we can get some great, conversations happening around some presentations and topics. Recipes, yes, I love to see that. I'm a big, pulling up what could there's a cool app where you could just throw in a bunch of ingredients and it, formulates a recipe for you. Budgeting, absolutely. Getting some content information. Yeah. Yeah, news, what's out there, and hobbies, and so on. So as you can see on the screen, right, technology is very much part of our lives in so many different ways. And so some things that we may not even think about that we're using technology, but very much, as I was saying, integrated in part of our lives. So thanks everybody for sharing. And so there are many benefits to digital tech and media that we use every day. And so with this, we're talking more about that. We're going to sort of pivot to more that screen-based tech and tech that is often, though not always, connected to the internet. So think of smartphones, tablets, computers, gaming consoles, smart TVs, and appliances, and so on, right? So that's where we're sort of leading our conversation today. And so again, you mentioned that communication piece, entertainment, manufacturing, if you're thinking about things that even in the work that you do where technology is very much implemented and you rely on it to get your work done, education and learning, healthcare, in the field that Kathy and I work with. It's just, how is technology being used in terms of patient care and even personal management in our lives, right? With families and relationships and organizing activities and hobbies and so on. And so we rely on digital health. And it's like unlikely we would go back to life without it. It's just a reality. And there was a time when we did a session for parents and teens, and it seemed that tech was something that younger people relied on, but most people use screens and devices every day, right? So in all ages. And so for many of us, talking about a life without tech would be like living without running water or electricity. We use it almost in every areas of our life, and we rely on it. And it also improves our life in so many ways. So not too long ago, we needed all kinds of separate gadgets like cameras and calculators and record players, even paper maps. Yes, I'm that old, I can remember. I was using a whole lot of these pieces, digital devices that you see on the screen. But this convenience has its downsides. Like unlike older technologies that stay the same for decades, today's devices change so fast that they're actually outdated within a few years or even months. And many are even built that way on purpose, which means more frequent upgrades, higher costs, and a growing environmental impact. So keeping that in mind, that it's changing rapidly, quickly, and there are consequences to it. So another question for you, what are some drawbacks of today's technology? Right? What are something that some limitations or inconveniences or some negative consequences that you're seeing? Yes, so somebody said too much screen time. Yeah, you're hearing about it, that we're just spending hours on our phone or on our tablet or on our computer. Yeah, and that's seen across all ages. Distraction, sort of that negative distraction, right? Just maybe you have things to do in a day and that hasn't been accomplished because we're just spending too much on time on technology. Doom scrolling, yes, right? So just, going on your phone or your computer and just looking for some of the negative stimuli or information that's just not helpful. Negative content affecting our mental health, right? So what we're consuming is actually having a consequence on our mental health and in a negative way. Somebody mentioned eyesight. Yeah, so our eyes are just being focused on one screen or one area. And so the eye strain, I cannot imagine. I'm sure we're wearing glasses more than ever before because of that technology use. Endless email. So we're just, plugged into work or, things that don't need our attention right away. So staying present might be an issue because we're distracted by those looking into our emails or looking into our WhatsApp, Snapchat, TikTok, so on and so forth. Somebody mentioned passive parenting, right? So we're not being engaged and intentional or deliberate with our parenting. Our concentration, our focus is on our phone or our computer or tablet. And we're sitting more, yes, right? So not only with technology, our eyes are hurting in our brain, but it's actually impact how much we're moving in a day. And we're not moving as much as we should. Yeah, and somebody said loss of conversation, right? So engaging with the people around you who are physically present in your environment. Yeah. So as you can see on the screen, yeah, there are some drawbacks, right? There's some of those negative impacts that we're seeing that are coming through with technology use. And as you mentioned, all of them have impact on it, right? And how we are using our technology. And so what do we do moving forward when we're seeing those concerns come through? So thank you everyone for sharing something to keep in mind. And as we've discussed, there's so many upsides and downsides to our digital technologies. And so with our health, these technologies have the potential for decreasing depression, increasing connection, and enhancing healthy self-concepts if used with deliberation and intention. But problematic technology can actually increase anxiety, depression, disconnection, and distort our sense of self, right? So we're seeing actually both of them come through. So it actually can be helpful with our mental health and self-esteem and empathy. But that if it's problematic in nature, then you'll also see those negative impacts that you see on your screen on the right-hand side column there, right? So it's something to keep in mind. There's a flip side to that coin. And so how do we balance and manage technology that's helpful for us and our loved ones? So technology is a useful servant, but a dangerous master, right? So surprisingly, this quote was said over 80 years ago, but it's more applicable today than ever before. So any tool can be used for good or for bad, but with today's technologies, we don't always have a choice. So today's technology is used by its developers in a way that historical technology wasn't. First, these companies can track the way we use their devices, sites, or apps, and they can follow our clicks or even our movements in real time and have the capacity to track and sell all that data. Then, with that information, they accurately determine what gets our attention, what draws us in, and everything is adapted to keep us engaged longer and keep us coming back. So this increases the risk of tech use being problematic, addictive, exploitive, and even dangerous. So now that we're looking at some more common risks with everyday technology that can be present just from the way we engage with it, but there are also risks to tech use that we're not going to go into today, such as sexting, sexual exploitation, cyberbullying, scams, or identity theft. We know they're real and they do exist and they have negative impacts. Of course, there are serious issues that are going to impact mental health, and tech is a big part of why these are so prevalent today. So we'll let you know some of the resources in these areas at the end of the session. So back to everyday tech use. The reason why we're drawn to our tech like never before is because today's tech can seamlessly tap into our brain's reward system. So dopamine, the hormone in our brain, is responsible for pleasurable feelings of happiness or fulfillment, and it gets released when we like something. So, for example, whenever we complete an important task, score a goal, get a good mark in school, spend time with someone who we care about, our brain releases some satisfying dopamine and brings us those good feelings. However, a greater amount of dopamine is released with the anticipation of an event. So, when we're seeking a possible reward. So, first you have that trigger or cue. So, you receive a notification, tone or vibration or flashing icon on your phone. Then you feel anticipation. So, your brain releases dopamine in a response to the cue, sparking anticipation that something rewarding might follow. So, you take action, you follow up with that behavior, you unlock your phone and you check that notification. And you keep scrolling or browsing until you get a reward, right? So seeing a message, even getting a like, or finding interesting content triggers additional dopamine release. So that provides that reinforcement for that behavior. So your brain begins to associate the behavior, for example, checking your phone, with a reward, strengthening that habit. So over time, you're more likely to repeat this pattern even when no real notification arrives, because the anticipation alone has become pleasurable. And it becomes a loop as you start to find yourself regularly checking your phone, your social media page, or doom scrolling in anticipation of the next few thing, as a few of you mentioned. And so surprisingly, dopamine firing is strongest when a reward is unexpected or uncertain, which is exactly how many of these apps are designed. That's what keeps you hooked in and engaged. And it keeps you even when you should be doing other things like sleeping. And this is also part of why gambling can become so addictive. You never know when you might just win big. So you keep on playing, or you just keep checking your phone just in case you missed something. So, not knowing for sure if you're going to be rewarded with what you are seeking increases the impulse to engage in that behavior. And it also increases the anxiety we experience when we're prevented from playing that game or from checking our social media and from watching that next episode. So let's watch a video from some teens about how their technology keeps them hooked. One thing to note is the video is already a few years old, and that means the technology is already going to look very old. As I was mentioning a few slides before, technology is rapidly changing. However, we think the experience of those in the video are still very relatable to most of us today, not just teens. So let's take a look.
I check my phone a lot.
More than I can count.
I check it usually when I wake up in the morning.
Before school.
During school.
A couple times each class.
At lunch.
After school.
Walking home.
While I'm doing homework.
I'm watching people's stories.
Check Instagram.
Going through my feed.
Watch videos, playing a game.
Liking pictures.
I'm constantly checking my phone until I go to bed. I think it's a mixture of everything that's on social media that makes it so cool.
Stories or Bitmojis or GIFs. Teens want to try out the new feature. They want to be on the cutting edge of the technology that's coming out.
So on Snapchat, there's like the Snap shows, there's Snapchat streaks.
In the morning, just send a streaks picture. And when I get home from school, send a streaks picture. And now it's like a habit to do when I get on my phone.
When I post things on social media, there's definitely a period where I'm checking who saw it.
How many views you get and what people are liking on my stories and what I should keep posting.
There is a lot of pressure to present a version of yourself that's close to perfect.
I almost never post a picture that hasn't been touched up in any way on Instagram. I always check it. If it's not getting as many likes as my other pictures, I might delete it. I have binge watched, I think, multiple shows. I watched about 10 to 12 episodes in a day.
The 15 seconds between each episode definitely makes you feel like you have this urgent choice you have to make.
Instead of having to wait for an episode to come out every week, Netflix as a whole makes it a lot easier to just consume so much media all at once in a row.
I'm still trying to decide, but it starts playing the next episode. I'm like, oh, it won't hurt. You find yourself like 2 hours later and you're still watching it and you have homework to get done.
I watch a lot of YouTube, probably more than Netflix, and the suggested videos help me like subscribe to new people.
I will watch videos for like an hour and a half without even having a plan to do that.
There's just so much content that's just addicting.
Okay, so as the video showed, most of them were, youth and teens talking about their experience of using tech and so the negative consequences of it. And they also realize that something's not quite right. A lot of the messaging from that video can be applied to all ages, right? So that's something that tech was historically kind of connected with young people, but we're seeing it again in all ages. So again, just to be aware of what that looks like and what behavior we're engaging with. It's a great video, but already dated because it didn't mention TikTok. So how might all of this impact our health? Let's take a closer look. So overuse of technology or even the right use at the wrong time can impact our sleep. So sleep is a function that is essential for good health, mental health included. Screen time can impact sleep in many ways. So we're spending more time on screens means that we're getting less time for sleep. Bedtimes are getting later and later. With adults, 25 to 33% of us, a quarter to a third of us, are not getting enough sleep. With our teens, 70% are not getting the minimum required hours of sleep needed, and 66% of teens are rather considered sleep deprived. So those are very high numbers. The type of light emitted from a technology is called blue light, and it's said to impact our natural sleep cycle and trick our brains into staying awake, meaning we have overall shorter and worse quality sleep. And then the content of what we're viewing can be emotionally arousing, which triggers a response in our stress hormone that actually prevents deep sleep, right? So as you can see, there are many ways when the use of technology can, again, have negative consequences on our quality and the time of sleep that we get. So we know that everyone, not just teens, are spending more time online and less time being active. And this results in more real negative health outcomes, right? There's something that's happening that we're just not addressing our health with tech use. So the Canadian 24-hour movement guidelines recommends only 2 hours of recreational screen time for children and youth and 3 hours for adults. So 2 to 3 hours for any activity in a day is a long time, but for some of us, with all the ways we use screens, this may not seem realistic. And so we encourage each one of you to think of what the right balance is for you and your families to encourage a healthy lifestyle. So I'm going to launch a poll here just in a moment. And so this is sort of a question for us to think about. How many Canadian 5 to 17-year-olds, so children and youth, do not get enough daily moderate to rigorous exercise? So I'm just going to launch the poll here. Whoops. What does that look like? Okay. Our answers are coming in pretty quick and fast. Let's end it in another 10 more seconds. We'll take a look at the answer. All right, I'm going to end the poll here and we're going to take a look at what the answer is regarding getting enough exercises. Whoops. Sorry, I forgot to plug up the numbers, but the answer is
So you're reading
61% is we're not getting enough exercise. So 61%, so nearly 2/3 of our kids or youth are not getting enough. Right, so that's just keeping in mind what that looks like. So that's quite a bit of high number in terms of not getting enough daily moderate to rigorous exercise. So now we're going to take a look at a video that considers how digital technologies impact our learning and memory. So we're shifting from our physical aspect of it to how we learn and what we remember.
So you're reading an article online when you get an instant message with a link to a funny photo, which of course you have to share. And now you're reading your Facebook news wall, which sends you to a video of a panda bear attacking a kid. And now you're reading Wikipedia to learn everything you can about the violent behavior of panda bears. And this is what 3 minutes on the internet can be like. We live like this all the time, and it has to have some kind of effect on us.
The net is making us more superficial as thinkers.
That is Nicholas Carr. He is the author of The Shallows, What the Internet is Doing to Our Brains. To understand this whole thing better, we need to go way back in time, to say, like, the prehistoric age.
You wanted to know everything going on around you, because the more you knew about your surroundings, the less likely you were to get attacked by a predator. And there's even evidence that our brains release some dopamine, pleasure-producing neurotransmitter chemical, to reward us for seeking out and finding new information.
So getting distracted felt good and helped us stay alive. But the problem is that nowadays, predators aren't much of an issue, but we still have the same brains. And also, there's the internet, which is...
It's an incredibly information-rich environment that the net creates for us, and that's why we use it so much. I mean, sounds, pictures, words, text. And what this tends to do is promote a sort of compulsive behavior in which we're constantly checking our smartphone, constantly glancing at our email inbox. We're kind of living in this perpetual state of distraction and interruption.
Which is dangerous because
that mode of thinking crowds out the more contemplative, calmer modes of thinking.
And that focused, calm thinking is actually how we learn. It's a process called memory consolidation.
And that means the transfer of information from our short-term working memory to our long-term memory. And it's through moving information from your working memory to your long-term memory that you create connections between that information and everything else you know.
So you've got this awesome life-changing piece of information in your short-term memory, but then you hear that email ding and poof, there it goes. That email takes its place and you never get a chance to learn anything, all because of one distraction.
So attention is the key, and if we lose control of our attention or are constantly dividing our attention, then we don't really enjoy that consolidation process.
But I can hear it now. Someone out there is saying, what does learning matter if all the information in the world is just a Google search away? Well...
that is kind of shortchanging our intellects. If that's the way you're using your mind, just kind of searching very quickly and finding information and then forgetting it very quickly, you're never building knowledge. You're kind of thinking like a computer.
Which means that our very humanity is at stake. And it would be a shame if we all got assimilated because, well, humanity is pretty neat.
I really believe that if you look at the great monuments of culture, they come from people who are able to pay attention, who control their mind. That's what allows us to think in the highest terms, and think conceptually, think critically, think in some very creative ways.
And it's this kind of thinking that's at risk, being eroded one cute cat video at a time. Don't get us wrong, the internet is good for lots of things, and it should be celebrated. But the best thing we can do for our minds is to find some time every day to unplug, calm down, and focus on one thing at a time. Your email, and those cats, will be here when you get back.
All right, so that the video does illustrate that the use of using technology, in this case, internet, and having information at our fingertips, there is actually an impact on how we learn and what we remember. And that's really affecting our long-term memory and ability to focus and concentrate. And as the video says, that's part of what makes us humans. And so there is a bit of a stake here that now that we have this information readily available to us, it does have an impact. So something to consider for sure. So too much tech use can also influence brain development. So in younger children, brain structure is especially malleable, and earlier exposure to screens is correlated with differences in brain development tied to early reading, attention, and even empathy. So just think in the 1970s that children were introduced to television at approximately 4 years old. Now, children are being introduced to screens like smartphones at around 4 months old. So, high media activity is associated with measurable differences in brain structure, especially in areas involving attention, control, and visual processing. Excessive screen time is linked to reduced inhibition and impulse control. And lastly, when our children and teens always turn to technology, it may replace other activities that are needed for healthy brain development, such as physical activity, unstructured play, supported risk taking, and face to face social interactions, all of which are critical for brain development, emotional regulation, executive functioning, and social skills. So, not only are there cognitive impacts, but modern tech can have impacts on our emotional health. So, for those of you who've heard FOMO or fear of missing out, it is a reality. We keep checking to see if we missed anything in our texts, inboxes, news feeds, and so on. So there's this something called like anxiety, where we're feeling less stress symptoms when people aren't acknowledging or liking your posts. We're feeling stress symptoms when people are not liking or responding to your posts. And if you're too immersed in social media, this can lead to increased social comparison bias. This is where you think everyone is better or everyone is happier than you, and unrealistic self presentation. You may feel that you're constantly being evaluated or have an ongoing desire for others' approvals. It's also been shown that our teens are spending less physical time with friends than they used to, and much more of a drop when the adults experience when they were kids. So we're seeing a significant drop of children interacting and having relationships with each other. The graph suggests that there has been more dramatic drops since 2007 from when the iPhone was released. So that's when the iPhone came up in 2007. And so we're simply spending less time with friends. And that said, many people are now connecting with online friends and communities, which also can be a very good thing. But communication has many forms. It's been said that in face-to-face conversations, only 7% of what we're communicating is in the words we're using. And that's our body language, our gestures, our expressions, and our tone that actually carry out the true message or meaning of what we're saying. And when we only communicate in text, our ability to read and just decode nonverbal communication is impacted. Supplementing or even fully replacing face-to-face communication with online communication affects both the number of nonverbal cues as well as the types of nonverbal cues that individuals use to decode the meaning. So even in an online session like today, the important nonverbal cues like direct eye contact or body movements are limited, which again impacts the ability to fully read each other. So here's another phrase that describes that our technology can impact our relational health. So have you heard of the term phubbing? So phubbing is phone snubbing or the act of ignoring one's immediate social interactions in favor of engaging with a smartphone. So have you done this before? And where have you engaged in a conversation with someone, but then you're drawn to check something on your phone? And you either stop giving that person your attention or you only give them partial attention. So it's been shown that parental phubbing, where parents prioritize smartphone use over engaging with their children, poses a significant threat to child's social and emotional development, which can lead to feelings of neglect, as many of you pointed out when we talked about the drawbacks of tech use. So one more thing about relational health and artificial intelligence, which could be a whole session onto itself. It's something new and it's emerging, and it's been part of our daily lives for less than 2 years. It's already transformed how many of us live and work. So more than just informational tool, more and more people are tuning to AI for emotional support. So, a 2025 study by Common Sense Media showed that a third of our teens have chosen AI companions over humans for serious conversations, and a quarter have shared personal information with these platforms, right? Something for you to think about. And studies show that those who engage emotionally with artificial intelligence come to rely on it more and have fewer real life relationships with deeper emotional connections. So while AI tools have shown to be helpful in the support of certain mental challenges due to its easy accessibility, AI has also shown to make up information or hallucinate, giving misinformation that can be unhelpful or even harmful at times. So all the impacts that we've mentioned play a role in our mental health. So in a 2022 Canadian study, it was found that spending 20 or more hours per week online was linked to lower rates of very good or excellent mental health compared to those spending less than 10 hours. A 2025 study again showed that youth are on screens the most and have the highest social media use of any age group. And they also have the most mental health symptoms. Also, people who spend 7 or more hours on personal screen time every day are significantly more likely to experience anxiety, depression, and suicidal thoughts. So we may turn to technology as a way to regulate our feelings, but too much can make it feel like a need, or it can become a way for us to check out or numb ourselves. Or we may require that dopamine that these devices and apps stimulate to feel okay, much like a drug. So let's take another poll here, just a very quick one. What do you think? Can we be addicted to technology? Okay, so the question is, can we be addicted to technology? Okay, just a few more seconds here. I'm just going to end the poll, but we'll take a look at what the answer is. And so it's a bit of a trick question. The answer is maybe. Okay, so maybe. So it's neither yes or no, and we'll just take a look at it here. So this area is an ongoing research that the World Health Organization is looking into, and research is looking into further to investigate if there is addiction. The WHO has identified gaming disorder in the International Classification of Diseases, so the ICD-11, for those with a pattern of gaming behavior characterized by impaired controlling over gaming. However, the Diagnostical Statistical Manual of Mental Disorder, the DSM-5, doesn't identify tech use or screen use or gaming as an addiction, but as an area of further study. So we're getting some contradicting information. So that said, the DSM-5 came out in 2013, so over a decade ago. So when the world was very different in terms of technology use. So while in North America we may not be diagnosed with a formal disorder directly about our tech use, many mental health professionals do talk about technology addiction, seeing it as problematic, and it's on the rise. So addiction has different components, but even though we may not label our tech use as formal addiction, we can easily see some addictive components as problematic use. So with addiction, such as substance use disorders, we see what we call the 4 C's. So craving, this is a strong desire or urge to engage in the behavior or use the substance. With problematic tech use, we may see checking your phone constantly for notifications, maybe feeling restless or itchy. If you don't check your social media or engage in gaming platforms or go on online chat, right? Some people can't even enjoy dinners with their friends because they're just they're craving to engage with their phone. The loss of control, the inability to regulate or limit the behavior, even when intending to do so. So opening TikTok just for 5 minutes and then losing 2 hours, or having gaming sessions that continue late into the night despite planning to stop, maybe even difficulty setting and keeping screen time boundaries. So deciding to scroll for 10 minutes before bedtime, but staying up till 2 a.m., multiple nights in a row rather. And so then we have compulsion. The behavior becomes habitual and automatic, often performed despite lack of pleasure. So when problematic tech use happens, we may see compulsively unlocking your phone dozens of times in an hour, checking your email or social feeds even when you know there is nothing new, using apps or games more out of habit than enjoyment, and reopening the same apps in a loop. So, for example, going on Instagram, then going on Reddit, then going on a news feed, then back to Instagram, and even getting bored with engaging with the content. And lastly, the continued use despite consequences. So persisting with behavior, even though it causes harm to health, relationships, or even responsibilities. So with problematic tech use, we may see, staying up all night gaming, leading to poor school or work performance, ignoring family or partner and focusing only on tech, experiencing anxiety, depression, or loneliness from overuse, and just unable to stop. So, for example, a teen continues to play online games despite failing grades and parental conflict, insisting, I'll stop tomorrow. I'll stop gaming tomorrow. Okay, so something to keep in mind, the 4 C's of addiction. So, just a quick little question here for everyone. When do you turn to your devices the most? Right? When do you do that? So think about it when you are turning to your devices the most. What time of day, or maybe associated with a certain feeling. Okay, somebody said lunchtime. So, yeah, you're actually engaging with technology right now. You're going on Zoom, so lunchtime, absolutely. Somebody mentioned all the time, right? So from morning till night. Somebody said just before bed, so before going into sleep or before entering into bed. Somebody said morning, right? Just only morning time for 20 minutes, and that's it. Maybe after putting the kids to sleep, right? So you've put the kids to sleep. Now, you can focus on going on your phone, and that may take up a lot of your time, right? When majority of the day, before bedtime, yes. End of an errand or activity or meeting. So something has come and completed, right? So you've done some activity meeting, then you sort of pick up your phone and you start going on your apps and whatnot. Yeah, so thanks everybody. So as you can see, there's times where we do very much engage in those devices, and it may look differently for you, but really the key here is to ask yourself that question: when am I turning to the devices the most? And what is the impact of it? Okay. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Kathy to talk about strategies about how to use technology use and close out the remainder of our session. So thanks everyone.
So again, like Anissa said, we're going to turn to some strategies that can be adapted for ourselves, for our kids, for our partners, for our families. We take these things and bring intention to them. These are simple strategies, but we know that often simple changes in our life or simple strategies are not always easy. So tech is really designed to not be easy to get away from, to be convenient, to be enticing. And we also know that just changing any habit is going to take effort. It's going to take awareness, acceptance, motivation. So as we go through these things, whether they're new to you or not, we encourage you to make a note maybe of the strategies that you already do that are working for you, or strategies you might like to explore more or try for yourself. And the first thing is that monitoring, which we just did in that last question, noticing when and engaging in tech. So before we even change our behaviors, just checking in and bringing awareness to how we're using our devices. So when did I reach for tech throughout the day today? Why did I reach for it? Was it for information? Was it just because I needed a break between activities? Did I do it to feel better? Did I do it to feel nothing? How did it impact after I was finished using it? How did it affect my mood? How did I feel after I turned off, after I stopped watching that, binging that episode? How did I feel after I stopped scrolling for 2 hours? How did it affect my energy, my productivity, my sleep, my socializing? If we're wanting to support somebody else, like our kids or our loved ones, we can also monitor or track, their use as well, but note that we can't really change the behavior of another person. And while we may have more say in the tech use of our younger kids, it's really hard to lay down the law with adolescents. If you have one, you know this. So it's really important to track what we're noticing and the impacts that we might see in a person's everyday life, but more so, not so that we can get evidence to say, gotcha, but so that we can have informed conversation of the things that we're noticing and then enter into those conversations with compassion. Well, we know that monitoring any behavior that we want to change or that we want to be intentional about, monitoring just that as a strategy has a positive effect on behavioral health changes. We know people eat better when they just start tracking what they're eating, things like that. So even if no other interventions happen, simply observing and recording a behavior like your tech use can often lead to a reduction or a change in that behavior even before any other intervention is added. And our smartphones now have apps that we can get that are either built in or we can download to help us to track our screen time. So we might want to start using tech to help us to monitor our tech use. And as we do monitor our tech use, we need to bring in that compassion for ourselves, compassion for those we support. We keep our focus on what does wellness look like and how can our technology support that. The more that we talk about our tech use, the more we really identify what's important to us, actually about our values, about the life we want to live, what our lives look like, what we'd like in our day, what's helpful, what's not helpful, the more motivation we're going to have to make changes that we want to make and stick with it. And if we do decide that we need to see some changes, we acknowledge that, you know what? Change is effort. It's hard for everybody in the planet. We have to have some compassion around any discomfort that we might notice us are feeling around any behavior changes that we're going to try. We want to have compassion for that so we can keep going. Self-compassion is also important because there have been studies that show that people with higher self-compassion tend to show greater psychological well-being and less problematic social media use. So self-compassion, when we engage in regular self-compassion practices, it's a promising protective factor in how we engage in an online world. And we want to, of course, extend compassion more than judgment to those we care for when we're having conversation about tech use with the people in our lives. Remember that someone else's tech use may not be the same as your own, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's problematic. Maybe you're a parent who doesn't understand video games or why your kids are into it. And just because you don't understand something, that doesn't mean that it doesn't have some good benefits and there isn't an okay activity, right? So it's about having conversations to learn more. You might think that your loved one is on their phone too much, but maybe if they could you could talk with them and they can let you know how they're using it. And hey, they might point out to you that, well, you're always, constantly checking your news feeds or have that 24-hour news on, and maybe that's not great. So we want to have conversations and be honest with each other and with ourselves about how we're using tech, but enter into these conversations with some courage to speak to what we see, but also lots of compassion and collaboration so that we can work together in that collaborative spirit more than a confrontational one. If you are wanting to reduce the amount of time you or your child are on a screen, it's really key to add before you take away. So increase the amount of time that's spent in other activities that support movement, creativity, connection. Because the more we're engaged in these other pursuits that challenge us, things that fill us up, the less we're going to mindlessly turn to devices. If I get involved in a club or a social group, or if I have a new hobby that I'm into, that might just automatically reduce the time that I spend in front of a screen. And if you want others in your life to make some different choices, we want to make sure that we have other options that are visible and available and accessible to them. So board games in the living room, art supplies out on the kitchen table, sports equipment in the backyard, and not just things where you tell people to do it, but things that you engage in with yourself and you ask people to come partner with you and to join in the activities. We often turn to our devices just because they're there. They're so convenient. They're really accessible. So let's think of ways we can make other things just as accessible and convenient. There are other ways you can adapt your environment to support a change in behavior around tech use. We can adapt the location of devices, like keeping phone chargers outside of the bedroom or on the other side of the room so we can't just reach for them right away when we wake up. We could use an alarm clock instead of a phone so we don't have our phone right near our bed. Designate screen use to common areas like the living room. We could make some rules in our household of where we use screens. We can adapt our schedules when we're using devices. We could say everybody puts away their devices 1 to 2 hours before bedtime, or we say, I don't do my tech use until later in the day, so postpone our tech use until a later time. We could decide to have regular screen-free days, maybe one night a week or one evening a week. Schedule certain times of the day where this is when I respond to messages and that's it. set timers for scrolling or for gaming or for watching shows. And then there's accountability that we can bring around us. So we could have device-free gatherings, like device-free dinners, make a plan to watch movies or do gaming or use our tech with other people present. Have everybody put their device out of reach for time, like you could put all the phones in a basket when socializing. So again, we want to make the healthy choice the easier choice. So let's think about how we can change our environment to make other things more accessible and make tech a little less accessible. And with that, we're going to watch a little video on how we might do that and how to model some healthy use.
Like. Guys, honestly, 5 more minutes. Like.
Oh, it's so nice to all be sitting down together. Who can tell me something they did today?
I drew a horsey.
Good for you, son. Anyone have a charger? I'm at like 2%.
I'm not hungry.
What's wrong, sweetheart?
I miss Daddy.
I know. We all miss him.
I miss him more.
Oh, no, I miss him the most.
I miss him a lot.
No
Don't
more.
wake up missing
I
him.
literally miss him. I miss him
more.
so
Hey,
much more.
hey, everyone shut up. This filter makes me look like a cat. It's so funny, it's making me cry. So, sweetie, tell me about your day.
Well, today, actually, I was driving to the grocery store and I saw a dog.
Oh, you saw a dog?
Daddy, put your phone in the basket.
The basket's so crowded, though.
Just put it in.
Oh, wait.
Put it in the basket. In the basket.
Put it in the basket, right?
It's an easy thing. Just put it in the basket.
Please put it in the basket. Thanks. Right. Let's see what we think of this meal.
As long as it's in the basket, though, I can technically still touch it, right?
Okay, maybe you saw yourself in some of those videos. Those videos come from Common Sense Media, and you can find them on their website. Really helpful in starting some conversations around tech in our home with our families. So we started this session with a discussion on the benefits of digital technology, and there are so many ways our tech can support our wellness. Let's continue to be intentional about how we engage with our devices. We're going to use tech to connect instead of isolate. We're going to try to find ways to use our tech to create, not just consume. Use drawing apps, cooking tutorials, contribute to a Wikipedia article, record music, make a podcast, but let's be creators of tech or of things online. And use tech to tune in and not just tune out. Learn a skill, use a language learning app, listen to an informative podcast, grow and learn with our tech. Let's be intentional about how we engage. And let's have conversations so we also can understand each other and engage together. Again, whenever we engage with tech, let's seek to intentionally enhance authenticity over a curated image. You know, tech is new, but mental health challenges are not. Whether the tech use is contributing to a new mental health challenge or the problematic tech use is a symptom and not the main cause of a problem, if it's having a significant impact, if your mental health is being challenged and tech might be a part of that, you might want to seek out the advice or treatment from a professional. There might be other issues that need to be addressed, like depression, anxiety, trauma, etc. And even physical pain and medical issues can cause us to lean more into our tech as an escape or something to help us cope. You know, technology can be a powerful tool also for support and care. We can get telehealth. We can get a lot of resources online around our mental health. But let's reach out for professional help from a family doctor or a therapist or support from a community agency whenever we're having any challenges. There are helpful apps that help you to use technology to support your well-being. There's mindfulness apps, therapy apps, educational videos, health trackers, sleep, eating, and movement apps. There's lots of healthy and encouraging online communities. So, you know, try different tools and find some that are right for you with whatever you're facing right now. Not all screen time is harmful, not all is helpful. The key to digital wellness is the intention that we bring to our use, and we got to consider what's important to us. What do we value, and how do we want to incorporate tech as a tool in our daily lives? You can even just step away from your device, take a piece of paper, and write for yourself, write down some goals you have around your tech use, how you want to use tech, how much time you feel should be, how much use should have in a day, how you want to have that influencing how you work in your home. And if you're doing this with a partner, you're doing this with a child, collaborate to support one another. Before you open an app, before you unlock your phone, go, what am I here for? To ensure that when you're engaging with tech, you're the one choosing it, and it's not the tech who's choosing for you. You can also, with a partner or as a family, make a family media plan. So this is one from Common Sense Media, and it has, it leads you through discussions and where you agree on some expectations or boundaries around tech use in your home. You can also just create a daily schedule where you schedule in all the essentials of the day first. You go, this is how much time I need for sleep, for eating, for movement, for exercise, for good hygiene, for connection. Put all that in, and then only once those essentials are in the schedule, you fill the gaps. You fit the gaps within some tech, with some tech time. So we're going to end today's session just with some resources that might help you to make better decisions around tech use. In Canada, we have Media Smarts and the Center for Healthy Screen Use. There's also Common Sense Media in the States that had those Will Ferrell videos. It's an excellent site that keeps you informed about tech trends and gives reviews and what you can expect of new apps and new sites, etc. And for managing those online risks, the Government of Canada actually has quite a few different resources. So you can learn more about things like cyber fraud and identity theft and cyberbullying and online disinformation. And of course, there are many mental health tech tools, and here are some free ones that you can look into. Mindshift CBT, Insight Timer, PTSD Coach Canada, What's Up, Hope by CAMH, and Breather for Mindful Moments. So these are a lot of free resources out there where you're using your tech to support your mental health. Oops, there's even more. So think about it as you leave today. What is one change that you could make this week to support your healthier tech use? Maybe it's something you always knew you could do, but maybe you'll just give it a shot. Who do you need to bring in for support around you? What's one thing you can do? So I hope that some of this has piqued your interest, will lead to some good conversations and good reflections. Thanks for joining us today. For more information about addiction or mental health resources in your area, please contact one of the provincial or national helplines that you see here on the slide. And just all the best to you and your families on your journey to digital wellness.
Thank you so much, Kathy and Anissa. I'm going to leave this slide up. Normally I share our thank you slide, but I'm going to leave it up for anybody who wants to take down those resources. All the other resources that were shared on those last few slides, we'll make sure that's included in the recap email, because I know we flew through them, so we'll make sure everybody gets those. But my gosh, what a great session. I took so many notes as usual. I think my favorite takeaway was just the ways to engage with tech that you had a few slides back. The connect instead of isolate, create instead of consume, tune in instead of tune out. It's a really powerful framework to think of how we engage with tech. So I encourage everyone to share their takeaways in the chat. I know we're right at time here, so we're going to end in the next minute. We do have the survey at the end, so please do fill that out. So thank you again for joining us, whether you're here live or watching the replay. Again, the replay will be sent to everyone who registered, so no worries for that. Thank you again to our platinum sponsor, Ellis Dawn, for being here today. We really appreciate the support. I'm going to paste some stuff in the chat here just so you can kind of see what Mental Health Foundation is up to in the next few months here. We have a really cool event called Band Jam coming up on November 27th, which is a really cool rock music event to support Mental Health Foundation and Kickstand. So check out the link there to learn more about that. This event was actually started by Ellis Dawn back in 2018. So we're really excited to be a part of it. Our next Lunch and Learn is November 7th. So that one will be all about the difference between mental health problems and a diagnosis of a mental disorder and the different differentiations between the two. So we invite you to join us for that. The link is in the chat to sign up. And yeah, subscribe to our newsletter, follow us on socials. We love to stay in touch with everybody in between these sessions so that we can see, just all the good work happening in community, everything we're doing, everything you're doing. So please fill out the survey at the end. Thank you so much for joining us and have a good rest of your afternoon, everyone.